Metro, and you said you did. I sent you a back channel. I don't know if you checked them, so I was going to ask if you'd be kind enough to check your back channel.
You're right. I didn't check it. I mean, I may have checked it, but I don't. That's not something I stay on top of. But do me. You got a pen on you?
Sure. Hold on for 1 second.
All right. If you got a pen on you, I'll give you a number to text it to. Something I check every day.
Oh, bear with me, my brother.
It's all good. Shout out to everybody else. So we're going to be live streaming on a couple different platforms: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's just something I get in the habit of doing. This isn't scheduled, but this is just a pop up room that I wanted.
I'm ready when you are, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's good. The number is 702
702
710
710
8030. So 702 710
8030.
Yeah. 702 710 8030. Good to go?
Yes, sir. I got it.
Amen. Let's get it.
I appreciate you. Now, Otis, quick question.
Yes, sir.
And I'll get out of your hair.
You're okay.
Have you ever purchased a property by purchasing the LLC that was the owner of the property, as opposed to doing a real estate transaction?
No, I haven't. It just hasn't come up. But if there was a property that I wanted to purchase that was owned by an LLC, I would probably try to explore that first.
You'd probably try to what?
I would probably try to explore that first, but it would depend it would depend on a few things. It would depend on if that LLC has something that I want, because there's advantages to doing that and disadvantages to doing that. Because there's a lot we don't see behind the LLC that may own it. They may have partners, they may have other entities that have interest. So there's a lot that I would have to look at to see if that was the best route to go. Otherwise, I would just do it straight. I would just do it the normal way.
Got it. Thank you very much, man.
Amen. All right. Why don't people get started in their businesses? Why don't people start a business? Why don't people scale their business up? And I can tell you, as not just a business owner, I've had multiple businesses, and I've had the luxury of going bankrupt before I've had the luxury of scaling up to past the 7-figure mark, and dealing with all the things that come along with that. I've had the luxury, air quotes, right? Not really a luxury, of growing too fast, getting too well known before I had a chance to implement, a lot of the different systems. And, I always have an appreciation for the entrepreneurship journey, because that's the quickest way to get developed. You go to Stanford for 4 years if you want to, but I don't see any millionaires standing up there outside of the keynote speech at graduation. So, that's not always the road for everybody. Now, I got kids in college, so I'm not. This isn't a question about the merits of college. I'm pro college in many situations, and I'm anti-college in a few other situations. But there is no excuse in this country for somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur not to be one. And the reason why I harp on that so much is because I've seen what people are working with in other countries and how effective they are with so much less than we have at our disposal. There's a foundation in Africa. The people that founded the foundation are actually from here, from the States, and it's called Starfish Foundation. So anybody that has my business card, my digital business card, you'll notice that there's a tab on there that says Starfish Foundation. So I had the pleasure of going to Africa to consult on multiple projects, some development projects in Senegal, and then we went to Gambia, and I had the opportunity to meet with the vice president, or what they call the Minister of Interior of Gambia, to talk about a Twin Towers project over there. And during that trip, I met with a group of young college students that come back to their town and teach, and they operate this recreation center, for the kids, the young people in their town. And when I tell you that, if these folks, like the type of work ethic and the perspective that they have, that entrepreneurial spirit, and not waiting to make a decision, not waiting until they have enough to do what needs to be done. If they came over here, they would drag us through the mud. Like they would, it wouldn't even be close. Like these kids are, I call them kids, man. I sound old now, kids. They in their 20s, right? But yeah, kids to me are just so focused, and they have a saying. It's, and I actually adopted the saying from them, and you guys will hear me say it many times: do what you can where you are with what you have. And I take that to heart. And it changed me after I went over there and then came back over here as an entrepreneur. It helped me grow a little bit just by seeing their perspective and how they approach not just life, but their objectives, right? Professional and personal. So I was super impressed by that. And, when you come back to the States after experiencing something like that, you have a new perspective on not just what it takes to be successful, but you look at things a little differently. For example, you look at, in entrepreneurs, we're always evaluating ourselves. Most people know me as a real estate guy, but some of the businesses that I've had were successful that are non-real estate related. We're always evaluating ourselves to see if we could be doing more. And when you go over and you're exposed to all of these different cultures and how they approach business, you reevaluate yourself and realize, oh my goodness, there's no excuse that I shouldn't be where I want to be. And, so I wanted to do this live today. We could talk about real estate. If you guys have real estate questions, I'm always open to answering those questions. What's up, Jay? I'm always open to answering those questions. You guys on Clubhouse, if you want to come up on stage, even if you don't have a question, but just so you can ask it, because I'm not always glancing. And I usually ask people to interrupt me because I'm used to, talking about these things for 4 and 5 hours straight. So, I'm worried that if I stop talking, it'll sound like this. See, uncomfortable silence. See, so we're just trying to avoid those. So feel free to raise your hand, come up on stage. Folks on TikTok, if you guys want to come up and ask questions, you're more than welcome to do that, or just type them in and I will stop what I'm doing and answer your question as it comes up. So I want to tackle a lot of the reasons that people don't become entrepreneurs. And this is very, very common. And the first 8 are really fear-based. For those of you that don't know, we are branching into the entrepreneurship space, really entrepreneurship education. And this is a program that's taught by actual entrepreneurs, 7-figure entrepreneurs at least, right? So you can't teach this, you can't teach in this program unless you've had at least a 7-figure business. And we have a business retreat in Medellin called Venture U. And Venture U is going to be the brand for our entrepreneurship coaching. It's a 3-week course. People are fearful. They tell, amen. It's a 3-week course that we're going to have, but the actual international event is going to be in Medellin, Colombia. And I am flying out all of the subject matter experts because one of the challenges that I had a lot I had to figure out by myself. Now, granted, there was certain technology that wasn't out when I was starting out. There's certain technology I use now that wasn't available 4 or 5 years ago, especially with AI and all these other things. So I'm putting together something that would have helped me, right? Somebody that was serious about accomplishing their goal and would see the value in everybody being in one house. And I'm doing my best to remove all the distractions. Everybody's going to be living in the same luxury villa for that 5 days. I got a private chef coming in, concierge. I will pick you up from the airport and all that other stuff. And we are focusing on business. At the same time, we're going to have some balance. So we're going to have, after business shuts down at 4 o'clock. And after 4 o'clock p.m., we're not talking about business anymore to the next day because we are in Medellin, Colombia, and it's time to go out and have fun and do what entrepreneurs do when they reap the rewards of their work. All right. And then on the weekend, we're shutting down at 2. But every aspect of your business that needs to be addressed, there's going to be a subject matter expert there. So if you guys are interested in that link, Clubhouse, that link at the top is to that retreat. There's only 17 spaces and we haven't started marketing it yet. And those on TikTok, if you are interested, just text 4DPA to that number up top and above my head, and I'll get you the information. All right. Somebody said it in the chat. Who was that? Was that Realist? People are fearful. People are fearful. They taught 9 to 5. True. And I'm also very careful to tell people, look, there's nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5. If you have a 9 to 5 and your quality of life is just fine, and you enjoy what you do, don't let somebody convince you that entrepreneurship is a better way to go. I was able to fund a lot of the things that I do for Mars Empire. Just go ahead and text that 4DPA to that number above my head. We'll get you squared away. I don't minimize a 9 to 5 job. It was the 9 to 5 job in the corporate environment, in the multifamily commercial industry, that allowed me to observe how these big companies do these things and how they have systems in places and best practices. And I was able to adopt all of that over 2 decades. And now when somebody wants me to teach them how to invest in multifamily commercial, I have a very strong operations background. And you combine that with my real estate background and my entrepreneurship, it puts me in a much better position. But I wouldn't be in that position if it wasn't for what I learned in the corporate environment. And as a matter of fact, you have to be, as an entrepreneur, it's not, the two aren't mutually exclusive, right? You can do both. And for some context, I was in the multifamily commercial industry. I was at the corporate level, so I was able to, work from home a few days a week. And I was also a real estate investor. I was also mentoring people. I was also, traveling. And, all along the way, there was always somebody telling me that, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that way. You can't do that. You're going to burn yourself out, all of these other things. My last year in corporate, I already made $1 million. I'm not even talking about including my salary, which was generous in my opinion. I just couldn't tell anybody because you get treated different when okay, this is my opinion. You get treated different when they know you don't have to be there. And my highest income year, I think, was my last year, 2021, while I was in corporate. And it just didn't make any more sense for me to be there. That was only 12% of my income. And the amount of time I was there, 45 hours, a week working, I couldn't justify that time anymore. And that's when you should transition, when it's starting to cost you more money to be in that W-2 job, because you're missing out on business on the entrepreneurial side, whatever it is you're doing. But I do not I love that job. There's always going to be certain things that you could do without in the corporate environment, but I didn't have an emotional connection to a lot of the issues that come along with the corporate environment. And I liked it. Like I would go back, like I could do, I could go back and, at the corporate level, I couldn't go back and, start at one of the lower levels, but I loved it. So I always encourage people, look, don't quit your job right now. I mentor about 350 people. Some of those work 9 to 5s. And I tell them, don't quit. And they always ask me, well, when's a good time to quit and just go full real estate? And my answer is when it costs you too much money to be there. Let me see. How do they treat you differently if they know you don't have to be there? So when you get up to the level that I had a lot of responsibility and I was over some very, very difficult projects. And it would just be very, very stressful for some of the folks that I was reporting to. They treat you differently. It's not necessarily all negative, but it's different. and I noticed that because when we had the charity events, so we have something called the HIF, which is a Housing Industry Foundation charity event. And, I kept a low profile as far as, what I did outside of work. But when it came time to donate, I was donating more than somebody in my position at that place would actually, would typically donate. So, somebody reached over, somebody that I reported to. I'm not gonna say her name. She's cool people though. She goes, how much do you make? Like, so, the hint, it started going around, but I just noticed a couple differences. But again, not a bad thing, right? I like the experience. I met some absolutely great people. I learned a lot about, certain aspects of leadership. But again, with every job, with every environment, there's going to be some things you love and some things you can do without. So I say all that to say, it's okay to have a corporate job. I don't want to convince somebody to go jump into entrepreneurship. The internet will try to tell you that you should do that. I'm saying that you shouldn't. You should have a plan. I've been self-employed most of my life. I've been a business owner and I've been in corporate many times I was doing these things at the same time. And to be honest, one made me better for the other. For example, the corporate environment, when I was learning about systems and standard operating procedures, best practices, and all of these different things that make this big machine run, I was able to adopt those into the entrepreneurship side of what I was doing to make that more efficient. So I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's really your personality type. Um, I I've seen how small this world really is. It's not as big as people think. And I see the value of traveling and visiting other cultures and coming to and fro. I can see all of the stress that we're all dealing with. And the truth is we've just gotten used to it. So we don't think that we're carrying this big weight, but you feel that big weight as soon as you land somewhere else. And once you feel that, you keep trying to get that back. And the only way to get that back while being in the United States is to make a lot of money. So most of the reasons people don't get started, and I'll start with these, are, and somebody said it on Clubhouse in the chat. Who was that? Realist. People are fearful. They taught 9 to 5. So that is true. I will say that it was a different time, right? 9 to 5, 50 years ago or 60 years ago wasn't what 9 to 5 is today, right? 9 to 5 job, you could have a single parent household, not single parent, single working household, right? Stay at home mom, dad goes to work or vice versa. And that was enough to earn a living, buy a house, send the kids to college and have a good retirement. It's not like that anymore. So the stigma associated with having a W-2 job, I think has been impacted by that fact. And again, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I think it boils down to personality type. All right. But the reasons that people don't get into entrepreneurship, the top reasons are all fear related: fear of failure, fear of losing financial stability, fear of judgment from friends and family, fear of not being good enough. I'm gonna go back to that one because we're going to talk about fear of not being good enough. The fear of success and the responsibility that comes with it, fear of uncertainty or not having a guaranteed outcome, fear of letting people down, spouse, kids, partners, fear of not knowing where to start. So we're going to address a couple of these. I know some of you guys can't see me. If you can't see me and you hear me pause, that's because I'm taking a sip of coffee. All right. Now let's talk about fear of failure. I don't have it anymore because I've failed before, and I failed at this and I failed at that. And one thing that I can do well is fail. I think I got that down to a science, but it wasn't the failing that was the thing for me. It was bouncing back after that and being in a position where I was able to understand why it is that I failed at a particular thing, and I learned from it. And what I learned from it, I wouldn't have learned had I not failed. And people don't always understand that. So failing, and this is, just starting out. So failing and over $1,000 conversation sucks, right? And the education you get from that holds value. I think we'd all agree. But people don't realize that it's better to fail in $1,000 conversation than fail at in $100,000 conversation. But the reason I'm able to navigate that $100,000 conversation is because I failed when it was a small $1,000 conversation. And a lot of people don't appreciate that. And it takes, some grit to be able to overcome that feeling. But it's perfectly natural, right? It's perfectly normal. And I never tell people not to be afraid. I just say, look, it's okay to be afraid. Just do it anyway. Do it in spite of being afraid. And unfortunately, people just need the proper motivation, right? I was at a Tony Robbins conference and he had an analogy about being on top of a 100-story building. And there's two, right? 200-story buildings right next to each other. And there's a rope going from one roof to the other roof. And he asked, how many people raise your hand if you would climb that? And nobody raised their hand. He's like, raise your hand if I gave you $10,000 to go across that rope from one building to the other. Not many people raised their hand. And then he switched it up. He said, "What if your child was over there and the building was burning down and you needed to go get them?" And then everybody raised their hand, right? So for many of us, the type of motivation we need to be an entrepreneur is a little bit different, right? Some need a little more motivation. Some people need a little less, right? But so again, I think it goes to personality type. Fear of losing financial stability. Now, the fear comes because you don't have a plan. And one of the things that we are focusing on, I see you, Jay. One of the things that we are focusing on is, okay, well, how do I have a plan? How can I have a plan if I don't know where to start? Well, that's where we come in, and that's what prompted me to start going into the entrepreneurial education space in addition to real estate, because most people use real estate to fund their dreams. I know people that want to do transitional housing. I know people that want to help one segment of the population. I know people that want to help disenfranchise. I know people that want to open a sober living environment. Whatever it is, real estate is a great way to do that. And because I know that it takes more than just real estate to have the quality of life you want, it didn't sit right with me just to be teaching people how to get rich in real estate, because I felt like I was doing them a disservice. I was miserable when I had the most, and I had to go through some things personally that changed my perspective, to get me here. So, in terms of not knowing where to start, we we give people a blueprint. All right. And I think that's what people need. You need a blueprint, who to talk to, what systems you need, right? What processes you need in place, what legal structure you need to have. All of those things we're going to have in one roof. Okay. Now, this isn't, I'm just going to go through the reasons why people don't get started in entrepreneurship. This is not a sales pitch for our event. You guys can, if you guys want to check that out, you can do it on Clubhouse. That's the link at the top. And on TikTok, what do you call it? Above my head, you can see what to do if you're interested in that. But fear of losing financial stability, I think it's really the perceived fear of losing financial stability, or I should switch that up and say the perceived security of having a 9 to 5 job. I know many people that had great jobs. They loved doing what they were doing. They went into work one day and said, "Hey, they said no longer have a job anymore." Where's the security? There is none. Right? We have the illusion of security. What's 4DPA? Oh my goodness. So 4DPA is the 4 Data Points Academy. So it's a real estate investing training platform. I probably should have put that up there. It's a real estate investing training platform. We're the only real estate education organization that doesn't have an end date. So people stay on with us until they are seasoned real estate investors, as long as it takes. And we don't keep charging them. We don't. They pay once and then they're in perpetuity. All right. So we said that was fear of losing financial stability. Another reason that people don't get into entrepreneurship. Number 4, this is good. So number 4, fear of not being good enough. It sounds like a simple thing and a simple sentence. Most of the limiting beliefs that all of us have, if you continue to trace it back, it goes to our self-portrait and fear of not being good enough. Let me see. Exo Cassie says, "Can you get in with absolutely zero experience and only a high school diploma?" Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't need, look, some of the most brilliant people I have that I know didn't have a high school diploma. Most brilliant people that I know, super intelligent, right? But real estate investing is it's not rocket science. All right. You just need it explained to you in a way that you can receive it. So yes, you absolutely can. If you want to know about real estate investing in our program, you can text that number. I'll send you all the information. I'm not going to call you because I feel weird. That sounds like I'm not a salesman. So if you guys are interested, I'll let you know. But your self-portrait impacts most of the decisions that you make. And many times, so we don't have to confront the fear of not being good enough, we'll tell ourselves a story. And we don't always know that we're doing this. So I'll give you an example. This is the story that I told. I told myself, and I actually believe this until I went to one of these personal development conferences, and we start evaluating, why we think the way you do, and so on and so forth. So when I was a real estate professional, I'm still licensed. So for those that don't know my background, I'm a licensed real estate broker in California, licensed real estate broker in Georgia. I'm licensed in insurance. No, I'm not in the insurance business. I ran a mortgage brokerage for 13 years. I spent 2 decades in the multifamily commercial industry. I exited overseeing $650 million in multifamily commercial assets. I ran a real estate brokerage with my father. I was going to real estate meetings with my dad since I was 3 years old. I'm 49 now. I'm a long-term hold investor. I founded the 4 Data Points Academy, where we take people from zero knowledge and they stay with us until they determine they no longer need to be. I've done some things on the non-real estate related side. I took $585 and created a company utilizing an outsourcing business model that went on to generate 7 figures in the short time that I had it. And I did a lot of other things that sound way more impressive on paper than in real life. I think I actually have a voiceover to do my intro. You guys have never heard it because I think it'd be corny, but hold on. All right. So this is a story I told myself. And so as a real estate professional, I don't knock on doors. And I said, look, I don't knock on doors because in my neighborhood where I live, there's not a lot of people that look like me, and I won't startle nobody. They come home, 5 o'clock in the evening and see this brother standing on the door. That was the story I told myself. The more I analyzed that, I have no data to support that would have happened. I've never been discriminated against where I lived. I've never had any type of altercation where what I look like had anything to do with anything. If anything, people have been, polite and friendly, but we accumulate a bunch of garbage. We accumulate a bunch of garbage into our psyche based on the experiences that we've had, coming up. And we don't always know that we're absorbing all of this information, but it is. And it can manifest itself into something that influences the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. And I'll use my experience. When I was growing up, I'm born 1976. I'm growing up, every time a new movie came out, it was people like me being hung, burned, blown up, raped, all types of, all the bad things, right? So over time, especially as a kid and somebody that's young, that's going through life and doesn't know how to process that, then we come to the conclusion, whether we know it or not, that we are just guests here and we are not good enough. We are less than, right? Now, I've got 2 great parents. They kind of reversed a lot of that, but the world is constantly telling people that look like me is you're not good enough, okay? Now, you have to make a concerted effort to overcome that or it'll take hold. So as soon as you start seeing your limiting beliefs impacted, you need to trace it back to say why. And do you have data to support why you think the way you do for that thing, right? So I was just afraid of rejection. And I was afraid of rejection because I didn't want to be confronted with the fact that I'm not good enough. Now, again, I didn't realize that was the story I was telling myself until I analyzed it a little more. And now I'm conditioned to anytime I have a negative thought process, I identify it, because if I can't identify it, then I can't kill it, right? And when I'm training somebody, whether it's real estate investing, whether it's performing in the corporate environment, whether it's on the entrepreneurship side, whatever it is, then that's something that we always have to attack. Identify the negative thought processes so you can kill them, focus on the positive ones. So fear of uncertainty or not having a guaranteed outcome. That's just par for the course, right? All of this is fear why people don't start their business, right? All of this is fear why people don't start their business. Not knowing where to start with the proper guidance, that can be helped, okay? That can be fixed. All you have to do is ask, hey, where should I start? But understand this, when you ask somebody, where should I start? And they are at the level that you want to be at, it is taking them time out of what they're doing, which has an opportunity cost, to coach you through that one particular moment in time. Just understand that, because they understand the value of time and the value of time as it relates to money. So, you can go to all the free stuff and you can ask, there's a lot of free things that you can get started on without having to pay somebody. But when it's time when the rubber meets the road, when I need something in business outside of my area of expertise, I don't even want somebody trying to do anything for me for free, because I need to be able to pay them so I can hold them accountable. I get people trying to do stuff for me all the time. No, I want to be able to hold you accountable. So you better take this check. All right. So if you don't know where to start and you need guidance, This conversation right here is great. You folks on Clubhouse, TikTok, and Instagram and Facebook, wherever you guys are listening right now, you can just ask a question about your situation, and I can give you where to start. Also, one of the reasons people don't start is because they feel like they don't have the resources. Now, that may be true in a sense. You may not have the resources to start a business, but you do have the resources to do something. I'll give you an example. That company that I started with $585, it was actually less than $585. I just say $585 because I don't want to be a liar. So I think it was actually less than that. I had a real estate transaction, and by this time I was out of production. I held a license, but I couldn't justify the time doing actual real estate the traditional way outside of being an investor. And this transaction, it didn't go well. It was a husband and wife situation. And I told them that the property they could probably get $1 million for it. The wife disagreed, even though I've been in real estate my whole life. The wife disagreed, and the wife said she wanted 1.2 million. I said, okay, we'll list it at 1.15. I knew it wasn't going to sell, but because it was overpriced, and I was going to walk it to the market. About 28 days into it, the wife started hinting that it was something that I was doing that was making it not sell. So at this point, I don't have the temperament for that. I don't need that $25,000 commission. It just wasn't worth my time. So I said, you know what? I'll release you from your contract. And by this time, I had already I spent money giving the front of the house a facelift and doing landscaping and all that. And she was kind enough to say, well, let us at least give you back what you paid. I said, no, you can go ahead and keep it. I get petty too, y'all. I'm sorry. I'll be y'all. Put a 1 in the chat if you ever get petty. Look, I'm not anymore. I'm just petty on the inside now. But I was like, no, keep it. I don't want you to ever say you gave me anything. Right? So I go home to my desk, and I'm sitting there, and I'm pissed, right? And I'm pissed because where I come from, the husband is the head of the household. Now, the wife can make all the decisions, but when the husband says something, that is the man of the house. When he says something, that is the law, right? Now, again, the wife can make all the decisions. I don't care about that. But when the husband says something, it's law. And I had a relationship with the husband. We were babies together. I've known the husband just as long as I know my parents. So I personally felt that the husband should have said, nah, this is our guy. Listen to him. We're going with it. So I was pretty upset. So I'm sitting at my desk at home, and I said, hey, Lord, you know I'm upset, Lord. And I know you didn't create me to feel like this. And then not 2 minutes later, I got an idea. Now, because there's some NDA stuff and some lightweight non-compete stuff, I can't give you all the details, but I'll tell you what it was. I'll do my best. So I got an idea to offer this service. And I can't tell you what the service is, but I can tell you, I've never done this service ever. I'd never touched it, never thought I would, don't know anything about it, don't have the machinery and all that to be able to do it. I had nothing. It was like somebody coming to y'all and be like, hey, you should build a rocket ship. It's like, okay, I can't build a paper airplane. All right. So I got the idea, and I'm playing with it, and I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to do this? And then I happen to be, I go outside, and I happen to look down the street, and I saw my neighbors. They actually did that thing. They actually did that service. And I had relationships in multiple states, right? So I had relationships all over the place in the real estate community. And this was a service that serviced the real estate industry. So I came back in the house, and I went on Wix, and I spent that $14 to do a website. And the website, it was just a template. It was already pre-built. I had no experience doing that either. And then I went online, and I Googled an internet phone system, right? So I grasshopper, so I could make it look like I was bigger than I was, and I could have I could do the phone lines with the extensions and all that. So I did that. So it was like $14 for the landing page website. Turned out to be like $14 a month, and then the Wix phone line was like $30 a month. And then I went on the Secretary of State, got an LLC. No operating agreement, no nothing. Just LLC registered, got my EIN, went open up a bank account, and I started marketing myself as a company that does what my neighbor did. Then the orders started coming in because remember, I had the relationships. The orders started coming in, a lot of them, like a lot. And all I did was hire my neighbor to do the stuff. And then I found other people like my neighbor, and I would just hire them to fill the orders. So they probably, and I marked the price up a lot, like 60%. So I was probably working on that business, and I'm not kidding, probably 4 hours a month. 4 hours a month. And we did 7 figures. I don't know if it's just me, but your audio, let me see. I don't know if it's me, but your audio is a tad bit muffled. Let me see. Let me see if I can help you out on Clubhouse. Hold on one second. Let me see here on Clubhouse. Hold on. I appreciate you telling me that. Is that the one person? Y'all put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me okay on Clubhouse. Put a 2 in the chat if I'm coming in muffled. I need to see if it's me or just that one person. Put a 1 in the chat on Clubhouse if I'm clear, 2 if I'm not. And then everybody else on, if you're on Instagram, put a 1 if I'm good, 2 if I'm not. All right. All right. So it sounds like so Steven says 2. Somebody else just said 1. I should have asked what kind of, all right. I got 2 1s and a 2. I need to add. Okay. All right. So let me do this. Hold on a second. Let me do something. I'm going to fix it for everybody. Hold on, TikTok. They got it here too. So let me, today it's good. The other day it was a bit muffled. Okay. All right. So we're going to rock with it a little. We're going to rock with it a little more because if I start troubleshooting, then it's going to take a little while. But let me do this. Hold on. Let me do this real quick. All right. We just got to work it out for a little bit. So my point is 4 hours a month is what I was doing. And okay. Thank you, McCafferty. McCafferty. So 4 hours a month is all I worked on this business. And I think it was even it may be 2 hours a month. Right. And it ended up generated 7 figures. Now, so y'all gonna keep playing with me with this sound. Hold on one second. All right. So I'm an umpire. Okay. All right. Don't worry, I got y'all covered. Hold on. I gotta make it so everybody can hear. Where are we at? Let's see. Nope. Okay. All right. I got y'all. Y'all can share the room on TikTok though while I'm working on this. Just give me like a couple more seconds. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay. There we go. Let's see if we can reconnect right there. All right. And all right. I hope that's better, Clubhouse, because all right. All right. So this is the lesson in that. I know I said a lot. I said a whole lot. The lesson in that is something went wrong where I could have made $25,000. Okay. I came home, said that quick prayer. That always helps, by the way. I mean, I know some of you guys may not think so, but God has supported me way more than I deserve to be. But had that situation went right, keep in mind now, you're going to experience this in the entrepreneurship world. Had that experience went right, that $25,000 would have been my harvest. And that was it, $25,000. That $25,000 would have seemed decent at the time, but it would have cost me, one, the experience, and it would have cost me 7 figures. Because had I completed that transaction, I would have never felt the way I did. I wouldn't have came home. I wouldn't have said, Lord, I know you created me for more than this. I wouldn't have went outside. I wouldn't have saw my neighbor. I wouldn't have gotten the idea to utilize what we call the outsourcing business model, right? Outsourcing means you say you do a thing and then pay everybody else to do it when the orders come in, all right? That wouldn't happen. And that was about 7 years ago, maybe. That was about 7 years ago. Now, let me share what happened to get me to the point where I can, this is my daughter on Instagram, to get me to the point where I could even put that together. Let's go back 20 years, 24 years, right? I was a notary. I was a notary public. And I was, let's go back even further than that. Let's go to 1999. I got out of the Navy in late 90s. I went to work for the cable company as one of the first cable internet techs. Went to work for the phone company right after that. 2 years working for the phone company. I walk into work one day and they say, hey, we're downsizing. Anyone who resigns, we'll give you $25,000. I quit. That's how fast it was. I never seen $25,000 in my life. So they said, anybody that resigns, I'll give you $25,000 for resigning. And then we'll give you 2 weeks pay for every year that you've been there. So I was out. No plan, no nothing. I've never seen that much money in my life. So in true Negro fashion, I I called HR and changed my W-4 so they wouldn't take no taxes out. And I left. And I left with just under, $30,000. What did I do with the $30,000? I did what any sharp investor or any entrepreneur with extreme business acumen would do. I went and bought a car, threw rims on it, TVs in the headrest. I was broke 5 months later. Now, as I said, in true Negro fashion, white folks, y'all don't do this stuff. So I got y'all got one up for that. So now I'm broke and I'm like, all right, now I got to go find some work. So I figured, I don't have a real estate license yet. I didn't get into it until 2002, but I was a notary public. And then I went to go lease apartments. And I was always good with people. So I was number one in sales, and every sales thing I ever did, I was number one in. I was awarded in. And it wasn't even because maybe I didn't have any sales training. I just didn't care if I made a sale or not. I was making $15 an hour leasing apartments plus commissions, which wasn't really that much. And outside of that, I would do notary signings. And each signing would be, about $100. If there was 2 loans, it'd probably be like $125. So I would work up in Oakland. And then when I got off work, I would take like 2 or 3 signings. The last night I ever did, I was in Oakland. I had a signing there. I had another signing in Alameda, which is a city right next to Oakland. And then I had another signing in Santa Cruz, which was about an hour and a half from Alameda. Now, let me explain to you what a signing is. Anybody who's ever bought a house before knows all the paperwork you have to sign. As the notary, it's my job to explain those documents and notarize those documents for you. On the second signing that I had that day, it was in Alameda. It was at an attorney's office. This attorney read every single page while I sat there for 3 hours and 37 minutes. I sat at that table and watched him read that for 3 hours and like 37 minutes. I wanted to strangle him. They was going to find that attorney strangling that house with a bunch of paperwork. But, I was raised right. And I was always taught, always maintained a certain level of professionalism. Don't ever let anybody know how you're feeling on the outside. So we finished and I still had to go all the way to Santa Cruz and I was exhausted, but I did it. I came home that night. I came back that night and I said, I ain't never doing this again. I will go broke before I do this again. But then I happened to be looking at, thanks Jay, I did get a bathroom break. I almost wanted to do one at his house, but I did have a moment to think, well, wait a minute. How did I get the job in the first place? Well, a company called me and said, hey, can you take this signing? And I said, yes. And they sent me the paperwork. So what I did was I took the paperwork they sent me to sign on with them. and then I scanned it, and then I erased their I erased their company name and put my own company name, the company name that I was making up. So what I did was I copied all of their paperwork, made it my own, and I marketed myself as a notary signing agency and nationwide. And I would, always, campaign and reach out to all the different mortgage companies, the biggest mortgage or not mortgage companies, escrow and title companies all over the country. On my spare time, I would let them know, hey, anywhere in the country you need, I've got people there. So when I would get the order, I would just go to the National Notary Association database and find somebody in that zip code, see if they could do the signing. I'd send them the paperwork that I adopted from the other company, right? All the disclaimers and everything, right? And they signed it. The check came to me for 150 or 175, and then I would give them 75 or 100. And I did that all anywhere in the continental United States. So overnight, I went from being a notary to have a national notary signing agency. That's outsourcing. And it was going back to that experience that made me do it 20 years later and, get seven figures off that, right? So all of the fear I had a chance to work through because of all of these different experiences. Now I value the losses so much that I won't even take any help to get out of the bad spots because I feel like they're robbing me of my development. And that's something that I try to train entrepreneurs on how to think, right? That's the thought process you should have. Another is the emotional component, right? And for those that are just tuning in, we're talking about why people don't get into, entrepreneurship. Now, Ogo, is it Ogo? Am I saying that right? Brother, how you
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
how you doing, man? What brings you up, brother?
Then, fine. No, to be honest with you, I came up because I wanted other people to come up. I've never seen your room without people on the stage. And I like hearing from people sharing their experiences. So I actually did it to encourage other people to come up the stage.
Hey, man, way to take action, brother. Yeah, they won't come up on stage because they think I play too much. A lot of these folks have been following me for a while, and they don't want to be the butt of any of my jokes. But I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And it does not go unnoticed. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Amen. All right. So, most of the reasons people don't get into entrepreneurship are fear-based. So, many times I have to talk people off the ledge when it comes to fear. Even people that are that come to me to train them in the 4 data points. Come up on stage. Y'all can just put your there you go. That come to the 4 data points academy. 99% of the people are afraid when they come. They wrote that check and they don't yet understand all the value that they're going to get, probably until like the second or third month. They're just like, you guys know when you've made a big purchase. I'm not talking about for like a car or something that you can see every day. I've experienced that. I'm gonna share my story with you in a second. But they're always afraid, and I have to ease them into kind of how things work with us and make them feel comfortable and let them know that there's no pressure. And then they start getting real comfortable. And then we all have the conversation 2 or 3 months in. They're like, I don't know why I didn't find you first. All right. So I have to talk a lot of people off the ledge in doing that. Now, I don't know if I want to share this story. Some of you guys have heard this story. Put a 1 if you want me to share this story about something that happened to me before I go on to it. Put a 1 in the chat if you want me to share this story about writing a check to somebody. I know some of you guys have heard it already, but I will get into, can anyone else put a 1 except my daughter? Anyone that's not? Okay, there we go. All right. Folks, I got if you see my son, if you're watching me, you see my son come in the background, the back door. I'm gonna have to pause and go put him in my lap. I'm on daddy duty today. So I have a good friend, and this is you should always have good people in your circle. And at this point in my life, I was already making pretty decent money, right? I wasn't at I wasn't 7 figures, but I wasn't trying to be. It was just but I was between 500 and 700. And my friend calls me and he says, hey, Tony Robbins is coming to. Now, I don't have an affiliation with Tony Robbins. I don't get anything. I'm not, whether you like him or not, I'm just sharing my experience. He says, Tony Robbins is having an event. You should go. So I start Googling Tony Robbins, and I know my dad used to read about him a long time ago. And, I was like, saw some of his videos. I was like, oh man, this guy sounds like a real deal. But, I'm too evolved for you to be able to just give me some positive words and tell me to go be great, right? Like I'm too smart for that. That was my thought process. I was like, I'm too smart in that. I don't need that. I just go to the Bible. Bible tells me everything I need to know. What is that? What's this man gonna tell me? So I go, right? The ticket is like $800 and it's a VIP ticket. So I get to this event completely changed my life, by the way. So I get to the event and it's myself and Dimitri, and I have a VIP ticket, but I'm not on the floor. I'm not even on the section up to the right, that first level. We're on the one above that. So I call the concierge over. They're not a concierge. They're actual, most of them are successful business people that volunteer for these things. So I called this lady over. I said, in true arrogance, like money is no, that voice you got, like money is no object. So I call her. I say, excuse me, I think there's been a mistake. I'm a VIP, and we were told that we're up here. I heard sometimes he's at the airport. I was told that we're up here on the side. So I think there's been some confusion. She goes, no, that's where you're supposed to sit. That's the VIP section. That's the VIP. I said, well, what about, if this is VIP, what about the section right below it? She goes, oh, that's VIP deluxe. Just give me whatever I need to be on the floor. Okay. Now you don't have to go through all the stages. You just put me on the floor. I want to be able to make eye contact with Tony, let him know I see him. He sees me, right? We can vibe, have that kind of meeting of the minds. That's where my head was at. She was like, oh, well, those are our platinum members on the floor. I said, well, cool. Platinum me up. So she goes, all right, sounds good. So we actually have a deal on those today. That is $85,000. Listen, folks, I don't know if you've ever tried to fix your face like there is, like in any universe that you would pay that much. But I was already committed, right? I was already arrogant and committed. So I had to at least pretend that I would at least, what's up, buddy? You want your tablet? Okay. Go watch TV. I'll get it for you in a little bit. Okay. Thank you. Good job. So I got to fix my face. I have to fix my face like I would at least entertain this. Okay. Now I see my little boy in the background peeking in. So right after she said $85,000, all of my focus and concentration went to making sure my face didn't change. I was so uncomfortable. I didn't even know where to put my hands. I was just like, so okay. But this is what got me. She paused after she said $85,000, and then she said annually, $85,000 a year. At this point, I don't even know why I was still in the conversation. I don't even know why I was still standing there. So now my pride is shot. I'm only trying to bail out of this conversation without looking like an idiot. So who do I go to rescue me? I turn over to Dimitri. Now, Dimitri had money his whole life, it seems, right? So I look over at Dimitri and I give him the look like, can you help me out of this conversation? But I think on the outside, it looked like, hey, maybe we should consider this. I don't know what he thought to this day. This man looked back at me dead in my eye because the woman said the special is 2 people can sign up for $85,000. So I look at Dimitri, he looks back, straight face, dead in my eye, and goes, that's only like $42,000 a piece. I look back at this fool like, bro, it wasn't the math that I was struggling with. It was the audit. So I was like, clearly he's going to be no help. So I turned back to her and said, you know what, I'm going to go back to you said VIP was right here. I'm gonna go back and sit right here in VIP, but we might actually, are you going to be here? Do you take Black Card or you guys take, or do we just wire? I don't know what I was talking about. I wasn't paying that. So I went back to my VIP seat and sat there and enjoyed myself. Now it gets better. On day 2 of that conference, I was so impacted by what happened the first day and what happened most of the second day that this man gets up on stage. Now, mind you, $800 was enough for me. I was like, look, if I pay $800 for something, I need to walk out of here with something, right? This man gets up there and he says, hey, look, hope everybody's enjoying themselves. We've got some more Uh, we've got some more events coming up. We've got an event in Fiji, two of them. It's called Life Mastery and Wealth Mastery. We also have a Date with Destiny. So Date with Destiny was when I looked at his videos and movies or documentaries and stuff. That was Date with Destiny. And he said, and for the first 200 people that sign up, you get another one of these UPWs. It was called Unleash the Power Within. So he's 4 events. And he said, normally it's $15,000, but now it's $10,000. When I tell you that I jogged up there before he was even finished, I was so impacted. I was like, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. So I went up there, and I wasn't even one of the first 200 people. And I started running up there when dude was still talking. I wasn't even one of the first 200. I dropped that $10,000 so quick, but I remember the feeling right after I dropped that $10,000. First of all, this was just to get into the events. This wasn't to get there, and this wasn't for your hotel. And it wasn't cheap, right? Some of these things are halfway around the world, right? And you're there for like 5-6 days. So I remember as soon as I dropped that $10,000, and I was like, oh man, did I just get caught up in the moment? Did I get? And so I walked off, and I'm like, hey, it is what it is. And sometimes you guys see me wearing this red hat. Most of the time, you guys see me wearing this. Oops, hold on, my audio's tripping on. There we go. Okay, so most of you guys see me wearing this, either a black 4 Data Points Academy hat or a blue one. Every once in a while, I wear this red one with the 4-leaf clover, with the clover on it. I call it my $10,000 hat because they threw one of those in the bag when when I dropped that $10,000. So it's my $10,000 hat. And this is and I'm continuing the story because there's some more lessons here that I want to share with you guys. I finished that conference, and when I left that conference, my net worth increased almost 5 times over. I didn't learn a new skill. I didn't do anything different except I approached everything that I was already doing through a different set of lenses. And and no one can ever take that away from me. That is one of the catalysts for where I am right now. And if you would have asked me before that conference about $10,000, I probably would have laughed. I'd have laughed at you. Now, there were some things that I still had fear of doing. Like it didn't alleviate all the fear. For example, the conference was really, really good. But at the end of the conference, they have something called the fire walk. Now, let me give you some context. It is coal lit on fire that you get in the right frame of mind, and then you walk across the fire on the coals, barefooted. Now, some of you guys know me on Clubhouse, but you guys can see me on TikTok and some of the other platforms right now. And you may have noticed I am a black person. Here's where the story gets interesting. There were other black people there too. And one of the things I loved about these Tony Robbins events is there is no color there. Everybody is there for the same purpose. You really don't see color. You see business professionals and you see good people. And I love that. But on the way walking to the fire pit, you notice every other black person there because we all looked at each other with the same look. It wasn't a positive or a negative look. It was just a, you gonna do it? Look, or cause this ain't us. We don't do this. And we, and I was with this young black lady who was a super all-star. She was just in our group. And we get to the fire pits and I'm thinking I'm just going to outsmart the system. And Tony Robbins said, when you walk across these coals, don't run. You need to think about this, focus on this, do all these things. He gave specific instructions. He said, because some of y'all going to get burned. Typically about 4% of the people get burned. Clearly he ain't worked with black people because 4% was a lot. It's a high percentage. So I'm going to do it. Okay. I made up my mind. I'm going to do it. There's a white dude, a small black girl, and then me. I was going to be next with my black self. White dude, I always look at what white people do first because I'm going to follow them. When things go bad, I'm going to go where they go. Okay. I'm going to keep it real with y'all. Now, White dude walks by. Cool dude too. I actually met him in there. This guy is super funny, man. I still actually talk to him today. He goes by, gets burned. Like, that was enough to convince me it wasn't for me. Now, this is one of the most powerful people in the event. Now, a little black girl, young black girl, right in front of me. She is like really like petite, but she is sharp, right? She is sharp. And so she gets up there and she starts kind of panicking, but there's people there to encourage her. They're like, hey, you got it. You can do this. Da, 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 think this. Da, 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 da. When I tell you this young lady walked across these coals as if the coals weren't even lit and did not have a mark on her foot, I was sold with the power that our mind has to be able to accomplish anything, right? Now, I was sold, but I wasn't sold enough to take my black ass across them coals. So I never did that. I do regret it. I may go back and do it again, but there was a lot of lessons at that conference. First one, what I paid for, the information that I received from that conference, and it's not always direct information. Sometimes it is a new perspective. No one can ever take that away from me. And I look at $10,000 at the time. I'm glad I did it. But now I've made millions just from that $10,000. So I always tell people, look, get something that they can't take away from you. If you have one asset, your most powerful asset, why not develop that? No one can take away what's in between your ears. That is the most powerful thing you have. But people sidestep it. All right. So a lot of that fear and a lot of that is in our heads. What if this, what if that? Do it anyway. Be scared while you're doing it. Right. My son doesn't like going boo-boo for some reason. We're potty training him. He says he has to pee. He goes in there. He does it all the time on his own. I don't know what it is with the other thing, but boom, he'll do it right there on the couch. No diaper, no nothing. And he will cry all the way to the toilet. I don't care what's going on. You're going to do it. You're getting on this toilet. I don't care if you already went or you didn't. And I look at life like that sometimes. Like sometimes I got to drag myself screaming and crying. I have the worst analogies. I'm sorry for that. But I'll be on daddy duty, man. It's all I got sometimes. Some of the worst analogies, but they all apply, right? Being an entrepreneur, it's not moving forward because of how you feel. It is moving forward many times in spite of how you feel. And that's one of the things we got to convey. I'm sorry. So there's that story. I know it was a big tangent, but we're back. We're going to get back on track. Al up on stage on Clubhouse. What's going on, brother?
Nothing much, man. Pretty good. I'm just listening to your story. I can, my addition to this, as far as I think why a lot of people might not become entrepreneurs, is they're not aware of risk mitigation tactics, right? All they're seeing is risk.
Yeah.
I mean, in any business, all you're seeing is how much time I'm going to spend, how much money I'm going to spend. Is this going to pay off? You don't really know. I mean, in a sense, you're taking a gamble, and they're not aware of how much they can reduce it actually being a gamble.
Yeah. Yeah. And you are right.
I think that's the biggest thing. There's no context on, especially in new industries or industry they might not be familiar, even an industry where they might be familiar in, but they don't understand the back end finances of it. And the biggest thing to help with the risk mitigation is just knowledge. And like you said, that perspective. Once you have a different perspective, instead of seeing issues, you can think, how can I mitigate for this issue potentially coming up?
Amen. And that's why you should always have a plan. And, and there's risk in everything, folks. You can walk outside and get hit by a bus. Well, maybe not a bus. Some of y'all are like, they ain't got no bus route on my street. You guys know what I mean. There's always risk. There's risk at a 9-to-5 job. There's risk in entrepreneurship. In my opinion, the reward far outweighs the risk in entrepreneurship. I've felt just as secure as an entrepreneur at times as I have in a 9-to-5 job. And it's not for everybody. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody, and that's okay. I tell people, if it's not for you, then it's not for you. Do what makes you happy, right? I have friends that are not entrepreneurs. They've been working at the same job 15, 16, 17 years. They go on vacations. They have a really good quality of life. They're not rich. They make, maybe $80,000 a year per adult, right? So they're probably bringing in a household income of probably 150, 160,000, and they are happy. Matter of fact, their quality of life was better at times than mine was when I, had some really huge payouts, right? So I'm like, look, it's not about entrepreneurship. It's not about real estate. It's not about a 9-to-5 job. It's about you finding a happy medium that makes you happy, right? So your quality of life can be where you want it. If that's entrepreneurship, great. If it's not, that's great too. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, right? Now, let's go into the financial reasons that people don't jump into entrepreneurship. Lack of startup capital, right? No access to credit or funding, existing debt or financial obligations. That's a big one. A comfortable paycheck. Look, that paycheck is knowing it's going to be there every 2 weeks. That is a luxury that you miss as an entrepreneur. A lack of savings or emergency fund, afraid of irregular income. Now, lack of startup capital. That's the easy one. I like that one because that people perceive that as a really huge challenge. And I like opening their eyes to the way to do things without needing startup capital. Even in real estate investing, when people learn how to start buying assets without having to pay for it up front, they get, like, you can see the light inside of them kind of brighten up a little bit. So depending on what your business is, there is a way to do it without startup capital. Okay. Now, when people say without startup capital, they don't mean like your bank account is negative $50. They're talking about, maybe you only got a couple $1,000s to your name. All right. So somebody said, do tell. Oh, I love that. I love when I say these things and somebody say, oh yeah, how do you do it? So I will tell. So let's say I have somebody put it here. Let me see. Let's go on Clubhouse. Let me see. Hi everyone. I'm David, an email marketing specialist. I help businesses. All right. Hey man, where to get your name out there, David, in the chat over on Clubhouse? All right. I don't know, David. So you guys do that at your own risk. Somebody give me a job, an entrepreneur, like a product you sell, or just give me something to do. Just a business, any business, whatever it is. I don't care. In the chat, just name any business. I don't care if you sell paper clips. Maybe you build tree houses or I don't know.
Menswear.
Menswear?
Clothing.
Yeah. Clothing. Okay. So let's say you make pants. Okay. And you got $1,000 to your name. This is what I would do if I did that. Okay. I have $1,000 to my name. I gotta get something to show people. Right. So I got to get a mock-up, and I would market that mock-up and take orders for it. Now, I already know, and now you should do the due diligence for whatever industry you're in. I'm not in the clothing industry, so extend some grace, right? So you get a mock-up of these pants. Maybe get somebody to try them on, and you take all types of pictures. Keep in mind, AI is doing a lot of this for people now, as well, with the photos and all that other stuff. You go get you a $10 landing page, and you open a Stripe account. You probably already have a bank account. You open a bank account for your business. You go ahead and let's say you don't even have money to open to have an LLC or a C Corp or any of that. Just go get a DBA, right? A fictitious business name. You can go get an EIN. You can do it under your personal name if you need to open up that bank account, and you can put the framework together so that people can start ordering these, right? Now, I would give an incentive for people to pre-order them. And then with the money that you raise, that's what I would put into operations based off sales for a product that you don't even have yet. And that's what I would put into operations. So by operations, I mean, you have to develop relationships with manufacturers and everybody involved in bringing a product to market, right? Now, the good thing is, if you do that and nobody buys your product probably sucks. And it's better that now than finding out after you've emptied your, $50,000 of life savings into a product that nobody wants to buy. All right. But most people don't think that way. They think, okay, well, I need all of this stuff. I need, I need somebody to manufacture it. I need somebody to do, samples. I need to go to trade shows. I need to go. A lot of this stuff, folks, you can do from your home office. All right. Now, for service-based businesses, it's even easier because you don't have the overhead and inventory and all that other stuff, right? But talk to somebody before you think that it's impossible. I had a young lady called me for mentorship, and she didn't have any money, which I always get confused about what they what they thought mentorship was. Like I don't know but I always I don't make anybody feel bad, and I don't cut the call short because they don't have any money for it. I do wonder what thought process, what outcome they were looking for, but in this particular situation, it was a young lady that was trying to start her own business. And sometimes the Holy Spirit will tell you to do something and you don't know why, but you just do it. I just learned to listen. So I said, tell me about your business. And then I think she was making clothes or just clothes. And I said, all right, if you have clothes right now that you are you are trying to sell, I want to buy one. So where are you going to send me? Well, you can go look at them on my Instagram and then you can send me an email. And I was like, it's too much friction. I'm already done. Right. And I just took 15, 20 minutes to go over her business and kind of analyze what she was doing. And, I had a few comments on how she presented herself and gave her we talked about probably about 30 to 40 minutes. And then, I don't know what she ever did with the information, but a lot of the issues that she had were solvable without needing, additional capital, right? That notary business that I was talking about earlier, I didn't need any capital to start that up. That business that generated 7 figures, I started that up with less than $585. And I just use the same business model, outsourcing, right? So talk to somebody before you come to the conclusion that it's not a good time right now or it's not possible, right? So lack of startup capital, it doesn't cost you anything to have a conversation. So many times that is a perceived obstacle that a lot of people are experiencing. No access to credit or funding. Sometimes having access to credit or funding can hurt you because you don't have a solid plan, and now you have access to credit and funding, but you don't have a way to pay it back. So, and the internet is good for, giving you some trickery. Well, if you wake up at 11:58 and go on to Navy Federal and, apply for these 5 credit cards before it turns 11:59, all that nonsense, folks, be responsible. This David guy he is really, I think that's a bot, but he's really trying to get some business. Go ahead, David. Don't do it in this room, but go ahead. All right. So, breast cancer care packages. Amen. So there is always a way to do this. Now we're going over financial reasons. Lack of startup capital is typically the number one reason. The number one reason people don't get into entrepreneurship. No access to credit or funding is another one. Existing debt or financial obligations. That's a tough one. That is a tough one because you gotta feed a family. You gotta feed your family first. That's why I don't encourage people to just leave their 9-to-5 job. I don't care what the internet tells you. Don't just leave. Leave when you're making enough money outside of your 9-to-5 job to where that loss of income doesn't impact you. So you should have a transition plan. That's one of the things that we're going to teach at this conference. For those that just joined us, it's our Venture You Live conference. It's not a conference. It's a business intelligent workshop in Medellin, Colombia. We got a luxury villa, private chef. We're going to remove all the distractions. And I'm flying in all the subject matter experts for every aspect of your business, all of them. So once you leave that house, you're ready to go. There is no, okay, I left the house and now, I got to figure out what to do about this part of my business. No, I'm talking about legal structure, automations, processes, the whole 9, everything. All right. So existing debt or financial obligations, that's a big one. Just make sure you have a transition plan. If you are going to leave your job. Comfortable paycheck, that is a killer. I saw I don't know what it was, a meme or something, but they were like, that 2-week paycheck is what they pay you to forget your dreams. I was like, that's a little harsh. That's a little harsh, right? When you applied for the job, they didn't come to you, right? So anyway, these folks on the internet, man, they be on one. That 2-week paycheck is comfortable. Right? It's comfortable. And there's nothing wrong with being comfortable with that. Absolutely nothing. That 2-week paycheck, there were times, it allowed me to feed my family. It allowed me to do the things that I needed to do, put food on the table and all that stuff. So again, you guys will never hear me minimize a regular job. I loved it when I was in the multifamily commercial industry, even with the things that, all the little nonsense here and there. but I loved it. And, I will always be grateful to those folks for giving me an opportunity to be able to perform and show them, what I could do. So, but yeah, that 2-week check is comfortable. That's enough to keep people from pursuing their dreams. And again, if you're comfortable with that 2-week paycheck, great. Nothing wrong with that. Don't let anybody tell you different. Okay. If you're not itching to become an entrepreneur, then don't become an entrepreneur. That's probably one of the signs that it may not be for you. And again, one isn't better than the other. I know entrepreneurs right now that make $60,000 a year. All right. So it's not a money thing. One doesn't automatically make more money than the other. I know people in corporate that make $300,000 and $400,000 a year. So, Ogo, I saw you come off. Did you have something to add?
Yeah. And I guess I'm going to drop off in 3 minutes, but I also wanted to add, because I agree with you 100%. I'm one of those people that is terrified of losing my 9 to 5, because it's a great 9 to 5, and I keep getting promoted. I recently got another company offer me so much money. It make me a director for a company, and I didn't apply. However, I'm also an entrepreneur, a long time buy and hold investor in real estate, right? So I feel like, because like you said, I do like the 2-week paycheck, and I also feel like I look very good in front of banks if I'm trying to get a loan that has to do with like your taxes and your W-2.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that my contribution before I drop off is you can actually be both, especially if you have a 9 to 5 that allows you be both, because some 9 to 5 will just make it impossible for you to do both.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm even recently a new developer in Washington, D.C.
Amen.
And that's like a full-time job. You know what I mean? So it is a full-time job with the paperwork, all the violations you get in the city for vacant properties, and the red tape and the zoning exclusions and all that. But I still do have a 9 to 5. So I think that if the 9 to 5 allows you to do both, you can have your ambition still going, and then still benefit from the paycheck. You just gotta actually scale gradually, because my story is very complicated, but I started accidentally, right? Buy a first house in Massachusetts, learn how to be a landlord, buy a second one. By the time it becomes second nature, you're able to then not quit your job, because if I had quit my job, that would have been bad. But you're able to do both. And if I wanted to quit my job now, I could.
Okay.
Right. It's just one of those things where it's like, but it's not taking anything from me to make this amount of money every other week and still have my passion or my long-term plan. Because I tell people, honestly, for me, real estate is a retirement plan. It's not a get rich quick plan.
Yeah.
So I don't flip houses. I don't do that. I buy and hold. So just building my portfolio, managing my properties, doing all the good things with, Section 8 on regular tenants. But yeah, so I wanted to just talk about it. It can be both. It doesn't really have to be one or the other.
Absolutely. And I love that, because I was doing both. Look, there's 168 hours in a week. I work 45 and sleep 42. What are you doing with the rest of them? What happened for me was I was underutilized where I was working. Not underutilized in the traditional sense. They didn't know everything that I had going on outside of work. So this is no shade on the company. I work for some great companies. This has nothing to do with them. And they always, met expectations. They always said what they were going to do. They taught me a lot again. So this has nothing to do with the company, because I know a lot of people that like to put it on the company. And the problem is they just have the wrong perspective on things. But because I needed to do more, I just focused that energy outside of work. So I had the time, and if I'm going to be awake anyway, I can either do nothing or do something. So I was able to, do both and always incorporate both. Now, again, if I was working at a factory, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that. But because I was at the corporate level, I was able to, work from home a couple of days a week, and I had the flexibility, and I would get up at, sometimes 5, work, go to work, and then come back, work some more on my other stuff, and just, it was, so I was able to do it. So, again, it's not for everybody, but if you want to be an entrepreneur, just make sure you ask the right questions and identify any negative thought processes so you can kill them. Okay. Now, go ahead, Al.
I was saying exactly the same. Like I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I have a day job. I'm a marketing manager, but I also have a lead gen and software company. And so that just to piggyback on what you said, even before where you said you had a business where you're only working a couple hours, right? You can certainly set things up where if you have you can have you have the freedom, either contractually or otherwise, to do something on the side. It doesn't always have to take time. Sometimes it takes a little money. Sometimes it just takes a little organization. And I deal with the pros and cons of having like a side business. You know what I'm saying? Because as much as I'll give you an example. There are certain months where my side business netted like 3 times what my income was from work.
Yeah.
Right. But there are also months where it netted 0.
Yes.
Where it netted 0.
Yeah.
So it's like, had I given up the job too early, you know what I'm saying? If I gave up the job without building a reserve or doing something like that, I would be without 2 sources of income for that month, and I can't take that risk.
Yes.
So I mean, there is something to be said about you can do both. I mean, growing up, I always saw my dad do both. I mean, I'm from an immigrant family. My dad would always have, like, I don't want to say poor type job. Like he worked at teleperformance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he always had a side hustle, and it afforded my family a middle class to upper middle class type of life, right? And there's not a point in time where he didn't have a job and a side hustle. And I saw how that allows for us to live a relatively comfortable life. I mean, we were rich. I wasn't wearing the freshest Jordans or anything like that. But considering we were immigrants and he didn't have a degree and he was working in public performance of all places, right? For the majority of his childhood, and he was able to afford all these things, it really made me realize the importance of maybe your job, maybe your business is less of entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily mean to be you're taking everything to millions of dollars. Maybe your side business is for additional stability, and set up correctly, it can be. It doesn't necessarily have to be super stressful. It certainly can be super stressful, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah. And, again, it's all a matter of everybody's going to be different. And if you feel like, what you have right now is enough, then, you're fine. A lot of this doesn't apply to you. I mean, you're actually in a great position if, what you have is enough as far as quality of life goes.
It's not enough, though. I'm just letting you know, it's definitely not enough.
Amen. I'm right there with you, brother. So there's mindset and mental blocks. One of the mental blocks is perfectionism and wanting everything to be perfect before you really get started. That is something that I struggle with for a long time. Let me tell you why. There's a lot of, I'm going to just be transparent with you guys. And thank you guys on TikTok, the folks that shared it. We're trying to grow. This is a new page, so I don't typically like asking, but go ahead and share it if you find value. If you don't, then no harm, no foul. So every time, it seemed like for a while, every time I turn on TikTok or Instagram, because I have to, because I got to post about, what I do, let as many people know what I do as possible. It seemed like there's always somebody scamming somebody. Always. Like there's always, and I can spot a scammer pretty quick, and I can spot them from 1,000 miles away in the real estate space. So I was always taught that the level of professionalism that I have needs to be heads and shoulders above everyone's. So in every detail, I don't care whether it's our website, landing page, CRM, whatever it is, I keep fighting it until it's absolutely perfect. And there's been times where I delayed doing what I should have been doing because I was caught up on, is it perfect? Is it perfect? Is it perfect? So that's something that I've had to work through. And now I've gotten to the point where all I ask is, okay, is it good enough? And we can continue working in the kinks as we go. Another thing is imposter syndrome. I noticed a lot of people You'll struggle with that. That's a real thing. And I know very successful people that struggle with that. I know judges that struggle with that. I know people in Congress that struggle with that. All right. That is a real thing. You know, I'm always searching for that thing that I don't know in the real estate space. And one of the issues that I had when I was getting into in my early 20s, when I was getting licensed as a real estate professional, I looked really, really young. I looked younger than I actually was. So I felt like people wouldn't take me seriously. And so I had extreme imposter syndrome. So I would spend almost every waking moment just looking for obscure facts that people didn't know about certain aspects of real estate, so that when the conversation came up, I was leading that conversation. I did that for a very, very long time. And, you know, it took me a while to work through that. So, what I say, imposter syndrome, that's a real thing. Okay. And it's probably not going to go away, but you learn to manage it. And the better versed you get in a particular thing, and the more experiences you have, and the more trials and tribulations that you're able to work through, it starts to go away, because you start feeling like, yeah, I do deserve to be here. I had imposter syndrome when I had a company that did really, really well too fast. I thought, I don't deserve to be here. This is like 30% effort and we're at 7 figures, right? So that's you just move past it anyway, right? But information is the key to diminishing imposter syndrome, right? Information is the key to improving your confidence, right? I've gotten up on.
Well, I mean, even seeing other people too, because I will say from what I've seen, the what made me feel really confident is really getting out there and seeing other people who have done what I want to do, and or even like talking to the owners of businesses that I work for and getting to know how they started this and how they got there a little more intimately. And you'll realize very quickly, if you put yourself out there and really ask all the questions and get all the details, you'll realize really quick that dumber people than you have done it and made millions.
Well, what I would do when I'm working with people, and in matters of real estate, it's a lot easier, because I've been doing this. I was 3 years old going to real estate meetings with my father, right? It's in my DNA, so I don't have to put a lot of thought into, the things that I do in the real estate space. And what I would do is, I was so confident that I would have these public forums, and I would tell people, I'll say, look, there's no situation that I can't work out in 3 minutes or less, and just let people fire off, right? And I got that way because my father, bringing me up, he used to always talk good about me behind my back and good about me in front of my face, right? So my confidence was higher than was even warranted, right? I could be in a room full of Ivy League grads, and I'm sitting there with my needing 6 credits to graduate junior college, feeling like, yeah, I own this room, right? I get a lot of that from my dad. But the key to confidence is information. And when people come on to, 4 Data Points Academy, I'll use that as an example, their confidence is relatively low, as it should be, because they don't know real estate investing, and that's why they came to me. So I told them, look, you don't have to expand you don't have to get out of your comfort zone. I'm going to give you enough information to where we're going to continue to expand your comfort zone, so you never have to get out of it. That doesn't mean you're not going to be making progress. It's my job, right? If you got to get outside your comfort zone, that means there's a plan that's not in place and there's an unpredictable outcome. That means I didn't do my job, right? To mitigate risk and so on and so forth. So mindset and mental blocks, analysis paralysis is another one of them. Low self-confidence. I've seen people just beat down by life, and it could be pretty tough. And I'll give you an example of this young lady that was just, we were doing this was on Clubhouse, and we were doing it was a Clubhouse room, and this young lady signed up for our program, and I think it was about $3,000 at the time for what she got. And I had a call with her on the phone, and I've been broken before. Like, I've been so broken emotionally that I couldn't even talk. So I recognize a certain brokenness in people just from, my own experience. And I could tell this woman was broken. I don't think it was just, she wasn't grasping things. I think maybe there was some other personal issues in her life going on, and something in my spirit just said, you know what? I'm going to come to you. Now, she was on the other side of the country. I'm in California. I'm in the Bay Area. I got on a plane, flew out to this woman. We went to this spot where they had Wi-Fi, this local spot where we had Wi-Fi. And we spent 5 hours going over the same principles over and over and over. And by the end of that, maybe 4 hours, because we did lunch and all that other stuff. And then right after that, I went back to the airport, flew back to California. Now, it cost me more to make that trip that she paid to be in our program. All right. So why did I do that? Because the value of getting her self-confidence back made her far more of an asset to me in what I do than the cost of going out there. Because this woman now brags about me behind my back to anybody that will listen. All right. And the way she tells the story is way better than I tell the story. Right. And so I've had a lot of experience dealing with people in self-confidence. Sometimes it's of no fault of their own. And because there's a stigma attached to it, people look down on themselves because they don't have the confidence they need to, right? I tell people, look, come as you are, I'll give you the confidence. We'll get it. Don't worry about that. You can come in your worst state. I've been bankrupt, lost everything, had to work at a newspaper factory, got my car repossessed, couldn't afford to store my furniture, so I had to give it away, got my clothes taken, driver's license suspended, couldn't pay child support, like all the bad things that would kill a person's confidence, I've already experienced. And I was able to get it all back. So, but low self-confidence is a mindset and mental block that keeps people from getting into entrepreneurship. It is okay with the proper planning and guidance. We can take care of that, right? Difficulty committing long-term is another one. And difficulty committing long-term, entrepreneurship is like you work and you might get a paycheck and you might not. You might get a paycheck and you might not. So let me see. Al Durant says, learned hopelessness is a thing, especially in the Black community. Perspective changes everything. Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's what entrepreneurship is. You might get a check. You might not. You may work 20 hours and still not make anything. You may wake up and something falls in your lap. $5,000-$10,000 sale falls in your lap because somebody heard about you from that's what it is. But you keep working and you keep working and you keep working until you can't work anymore, right? Believing the market is too saturated. Sometimes that's actually the truth. But what data do you have to support that? Is the market too saturated for what you do? And then what is going to distinguish you from everybody else doing what you do? I'll give you an example. Anytime you turn on a phone or any electronic device, it seems like everybody's trying to teach you to get into multifamily investing. Everybody, right? Real estate investing, multifamily investing. It's like the new thing, right? Everybody's a guru, right? But what's going to make me different from everybody else? And that was a conversation that I had to have internally before I got into putting the 4 Data Points Academy into its own thing, right? Because I was mentoring people under James Street Capital before, but we got too big, too fast. I had to separate them, and then it took on a life of its own. So what distinguishes me from somebody else? When I started, I said, I want the average person to be able to do this. Otherwise, if it's just the elite or the people with all the money, then I don't have the temperament to operate in that space. I'm just not going to do it. So we don't have an end date. And the first time I said, look, I'm putting a mentorship program together, and I've trained a lot of people, so I know how to do curriculum and all that stuff. So the putting it together wasn't the hard part. I said, I'm going to put a real estate investing program together where people can come on with me, or us now, come on with us. They pay one time, they never have to pay again, and then we train them for as long as it takes. They would say, well, what if it takes them 5 years? We'll train them for 5 years. So you're going to allocate time and resources to somebody in perpetuity and never have them pay again? I said, well, yeah. They said, you're going to be bankrupt in 6 months. Multiple people said that. You'll be bankrupt in 6 months. Now, I knew better. I knew that I can train somebody to actually be a real estate investor. Other real estate investing companies that train you, that's a business, and they exist to do business for profits. I exist to turn people into real estate investors. So I'm banking on the fact that I can turn you into a real estate investor sooner rather than later. And then when you're a seasoned real estate investor, I still want you in our community because now we can do deals together, build stuff, do whatever, we can do a bunch of cool stuff. But that was one of the conversations that I had to have. It would have been easy to say, oh, the market's too saturated. to teach people how to invest in real estate. I didn't even know people wanted to know how to invest in real estate until I got online and started doing these rooms, just answering questions. And then at one point there was 700-800 people in these rooms answering questions. And because I didn't want people to have piece parted information, I said, let me put together a guide to teach people how to assess a deal. Again, even that was to give away for free. It was just so people wouldn't get themselves in trouble. And then it took on a life of its own. So if you are doing a business and you feel the market is too saturated, then you need to have another conversation about what distinguishes you from everybody else doing it. And if it's nothing, then you have another decision to make. Is that a direction that you want to go? All right. Thinking there, not the entrepreneurial. What's up, Al?
And I just want to say that sometimes people think, oh, the market is too saturated on something. And it's more like, yeah, there are a lot of people doing this, but a lot of people are profitable. I'll just give you an example. I know tons of people who own health insurance agencies, right? And it's kind of usually like the call center type thing, not just a few people dialing out manually. I'm talking tons of people on auto dollars with lead vendors with their own intellectual property, doing campaigns, and I've seen time and time again people become millionaires doing it. Right? I could easily look at this and say the market's too saturated, but as a marketer, being the guy who does the marketing in these companies, I know it's not. I know it's not. Someone could turn to me if I were to open health agency. I believe I will do in the next year. But if I were to open a health insurance agency, I'm sure someone would turn to me and say, "Hey, why would you open a health insurance agency? You know, like 9 guys that open a health insurance agency." And so I could respond, "Yes," and they're all millionaires. You know what I'm saying? So it might be like
yeah, no, I hear you.
The whole thing. You know, a lot of times, sometimes you don't even necessarily have to do something different. You just have to have the right numbers behind it, because ultimately, like, some of these business models work for a reason.
Well, hold on now. I gotta interrupt you. I gotta stop you because I gotta get through these, and I only got a few minutes left. I appreciate your perspective, and I'll come back to you. I gotta get through these. I don't want to get too far off base, but I appreciate what you were saying. So we're talking about mindset and mental blocks, thinking that they're not your entrepreneurial type, waiting for the perfect time. All of those things are going to keep you from reaching your financial objective, right? And if entrepreneurship is the key to you reaching that objective and you never get into it, then there's your evidence, right? Now, there are some legitimate reasons not to jump into entrepreneurship, right? So I'll let you decide. And I'll categorize these as time and life circumstances. I don't have enough time. There was a young lady, she's in our real estate family now. Actually, she shared her situation, and I said, "Hey, look, I'll mentor you for free." And I don't do this very often, but I said, "I will mentor you for free." Just because of how hungry she was when she was coming to the room, she was asking questions. She had 4 kids and she was living in a hotel. And, I was like, "Look, I got you. I got you covered. I'll take care of you." She's no longer living in a hotel, but if she's got 4 kids and she's doing it, oh man, it makes it hard. I'm not saying anything either way, but it does make it hard for me to be like, and I'm not like, okay. Anyway, if she can do it, so can you. I'll just say that. Too many responsibilities. That's people say that, but that goes along with time and not being available to be able to do all of the things that you need to do. I will tell you this though. If you have kids and you're an entrepreneur, a full entrepreneur, they're not in daycare, it will stress you out and it can impact negatively how you parent, right? Like you guys saw, we're on multiple platforms right now, but some of you guys can see, my son walked in here a few times, and I have him, he goes back and forth, right? Texas, California. And when you're going through your entrepreneurial stuff, like maybe, there was a time where I put too much back into the company to improve the end user experience. At the same time, interest rates started going up on projects that I was already in. At the same time, I had to evict some tenants. It was the perfect storm of all the things that can go wrong. And my son would be like, "Hey, can you come play with me?" Right? And I'm like, "I can't play with you right now." At the time, he was a little bit younger, so he doesn't really understand I can't play with you right now. And, there's been some times where I raised my voice and snapped at him, and I shouldn't have. And I'm gonna have that's something when I think back, he may forget it, but I'm gonna have to think about that the rest of my life, right? Now it's impacting my ability to be a good father and all these other things. So, it is what it is. You're not gonna hit it out of the park every time. The goal is to, when you mess up like I did with him in that situation, even as an entrepreneur, if you let that fester, it will diminish your ability to be able to perform at a high level. And oh boy, that's a tough one. Yeah. All right, let me keep going. So imposter syndrome, we talked about, okay, time and life circumstances. I don't have enough time, too many responsibilities. I was just talking about, kids, already working a demanding job. So I made the example earlier. If I worked in a factory, I probably couldn't be an entrepreneur and do that job at the same time. So your job has a lot to do with your ability to do things outside of it. Right. Caretaking for someone else. If you're caring for an elderly parent, or if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're caring for multiple kids, it makes it a lot tougher. And again, I'm just saying some of these things are legitimate reasons not to jump into entrepreneurship. Burnout from life or past projects. I've got some students, and their first project was a nightmare to the point where I had to fly out a couple times. And this one, I'm not going to say her name, but it's husband and wife. And I just love them to death. But the wife is like, I am done. This is my last project. And the husband's like, no, we're getting right back up and we're going to do another one. And I had to fly out there a couple times because things were going sideways with the contractor and all types of other stuff. So, so that was, so I can see, and I told her, I was like, look, it's just like giving birth to a child, right? Like, I know what that is. It's just like giving birth to a child. There's a lot of pain, but after you do it, most people do it again, right? And they're okay. So I get it, right? So a lot of these things are legit. Overcommitted to in other areas. I sit on two boards. I mentor 350 people at one time. I'm a father, all of the things, right? And there are times where I overcommit, because I'm so focused on meeting that objective, and it's just like a war type mentality, and sometimes other areas, suffer. So that's a legitimate one. Folks, I'm getting tired of hearing myself talk, but we're going to go through a few more of these. I just want to do a quick recap for the folks there's only a few people on TikTok now, but for the folks everywhere else, that link at the top, if you guys are on Clubhouse, that is a business intelligence retreat. It is 5 days. We are flying in all of the subject matter experts for every aspect of starting, running, and scaling a business that you could imagine, so that from day one to the time you leave, you are going to be inundated with processes and all of the things that are going to make your company successful. Whether you have a company and want to scale, or whether you work a 9-to-5 and want to start your own company, I'm going to save you years of pain, agony, and trouble. I'm just doing it like I would have liked somebody to do it for me years ago, and it would have saved me a lot of time, tears, blood, sweat, money, and everything else. That is called Venture U. That is the first week of Q4 of this year. So there's only 16, 17 spaces. We haven't started really marketing it yet, but you guys are listening to me now. That's what it is. I'm taking care of everything. You're staying in the villa. I got a private chef. We got a concierge coming. We even got somebody coming to teach everybody how to salsa dance. Yeah. Sometimes I'll be adding stuff that only I want. So, and act like it's for y'all, but okay, I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute. Sorry. All right, let's keep going. Social and external pressure. I want to talk about this just for a second. Lack of support from spouse or family. Somebody told me this a long time ago, and I see people say it all the time. Be careful who you marry. Right? It's either going to be the best or the worst decision that you've ever made. And, for men, I can only speak for men. I can't really speak for women, but I imagine it's something similar. When you carry the weight of entrepreneurship and all of the stress that comes along with that, and then you got stress coming from another partner, that could be unbearable at times. So just be cognizant of that. And if you are, if you're with somebody that is at least worth their weight in salt, then they should be reasonable enough to have a conversation with prior to you getting into this entrepreneurial journey, and include them, all right? Because they didn't sign up for that. You did. So just, just a tip, right? Peer pressure to play it safe. It's been so many years since I've listened to peer pressure. It just brushes off me. I'm just way too evolved at this point. But when you're getting into it, you may be susceptible. All right. There's always somebody who's going to tell you why you shouldn't do it. Okay. So just learn to grow thick skin. That's one of the characteristics of being an entrepreneur anyway. Employer has a non-compete clause or job restrictions. I don't ever, I don't ever sign any non-compete anything. All right. There was a situation where in the multifamily commercial industry, I'm a licensed real estate broker, which means I'm not an agent. Brokers typically will have an office or they can have agents working under them. And a broker can hang their license in multiple offices. So in the multifamily commercial industry, what happened was we got a notice one day that said, hey, everybody with a broker's license or a real estate license has to hang it with us. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Unless you guys want to give me another $300,000 or $400,000 on top of this salary. And I was going to fight that fight. I was going to die on that hill. And I was just going to say, hey, you can let me go. But I'm not doing that. Right. So how your employer views what it is you're doing, if there's any non-compete stuff like that may be an issue. Concerned about what others will think. Let me pause there. That is, until you can stop caring about what others think, you will not get to where you want to be. I promise you. It is very expensive to care what others think. It is very expensive. Right. And, there's a balance that you need to have. And I'll give you an example. What's a good example? If I'm in sales and let's say I'm a real estate professional and I have an old beat up car, people will equate that to me not being good at my job because I can't make enough money to buy a better car. I get that. So it's probably better to have a little nicer car. I'm not saying go get a Lamborghini, but you should probably have a nicer car. That's the argument. Okay. Now, if I'm Tom Hanks, I can buy a Toyota Prius and be okay with it because everybody knows I'm Tom Hanks. Okay. So I don't want to get into that argument either, but you have to understand there's a balance when it comes to impressing people and influencing people's perception of you. Okay. I don't try to impress people. When I go into certain environments, there are certain things that I will do to have some control over how I'm perceived. Give an example. I have 14 watches, 14 watches, and I don't wear jewelry. I just don't. I mean, I have the jewelry that I have. It'll be like it's none of them are precious metals. It'll be stainless steel, gunmetal, something like a cross or something. None of them are worth, I could lose it and I wouldn't bat an eye. Right. But when I go into certain environments, there's certain watches that I will wear. Now, I have certain watches that I'll wear with wealthy people, and then I'll have certain watches that I wear when I'm going around people that are more interested in looking wealthy than actually getting wealthy, because I'm cognizant of how I can control my environment. Okay. Now, when I go in and I'm having, when I'm with people with, some wealthy people, I'm not doing all that. I'm wearing no watches with any diamonds or any of that stuff. Everything is understated. And, there's a certain way of being that I adopt to be able to move in that environment freely. When I'm in other environments, there's certain ways that I move. All authentic, right? All authentic Otis, but there's certain layers to who I am that I'll only peel back at certain times. That's a hard thing to coach because there's a lot of people getting into the entrepreneurship space and they're encountering a lot of resistance, and people that are looking at them and see them going sideways won't always tell them that. They just won't do business with them or whatever. I've had to tell some people, look, it's not your product. You just have no class, right? Based on what you're presenting. Now, you may have class, but based on what you're presenting, it appears you have no class. So when people with means and people that can create opportunities for you look at you, you are more of a liability than anything else. They're not looking at you like you're a bad person, but when it's time to put some money up, they're not going to put it on or with you. Those are some hard lessons to have, to hear. A lot of people don't want to hear that. That's why, Look, all right, let me keep going. But if you are concerned about what others will think, that is, you're going to have a direct line to the poorhouse. Okay. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't control how you're perceived. Like, you should treat people with dignity and respect and a certain level of professionalism. If you sell insurance and I go to your Instagram and you're twerking on there, I'm not doing business with you. I'm just not. Now, I'll sleep with you. Okay. Now, I'm just keeping it real with you guys. This is how people think. Hey, I'll sleep with you. I'm not going to do business with you because you have reduced yourself to that. Right? Now, I wouldn't really sleep with the person. I'm giving you guys an example, right? But I'm just sharing with you how people think. All right. So, boom. A lot of people think it's one thing that's causing the resistance. No, they're not concerned enough about how they present themselves. Clarity and direction issues, too many ideas, can't choose one. That's another reason people struggle with entrepreneurship. Too many ideas, can't choose one. When I started the 4 Data Points Academy, is that Anthony Glenn? When I started the 4 Data Points Academy, we had like 9 different products. We had a group curriculum. We had group residential with one-on-ones. We had just a residential curriculum. We had multifamily commercial curriculum. We had, and some of you guys on Clubhouse, you guys know, because some of you guys signed up. There was a bunch of different, we had like a bunch of different offerings. I said, no, this is too much. People don't know which to choose. So I said, look, we got a group curriculum, we got group with one-on-one, and we got Deal Maker's Dream. We'll find the deal for you. Those 3, pick one. If you don't know which one to pick, then we'll educate you on which one to pick. All right. And some of y'all had to make that choice because I'm looking at, I see 1, 2, 3 of y'all are in our real estate family right now. All right. Now, keeping it going. Not passionate enough about any one thing. Most people, if you're just doing it for the money, it's easier to get burned out. That company that I told you that I created went on to generate 7 figures. I could have scaled that up. I could have went all across the nation and made it a thing, utilizing that business model. I wasn't passionate about that. I was just doing that to make some money. So I ended up not doing it. And I was willing to forego that income to do something else. And you know, I'm doing right now what I love to do. And I've made, I hit the 7-figure mark in real estate. I hit the 7-figure mark in teaching real estate. I hit the 7-figure mark in non-real estate related. The notary signing agent company, I could have scaled that up to 7 figures, but I would do it and then be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Let me do something else. Now is the first time that we actually it's a serious scale up conversation. That's why when you guys hear me say, look, it's a world of difference between $1 million and $5 million. It's a world of difference between $5 million and $25 million. And the conversation is this. Once you've made $1 million, you'll typically hit a ceiling if it's just you and this is your first business. You'll typically hit a ceiling because you are one person, you're involved in too much. You don't have all the systems in place yet to be able to step back and have things run on their own. There's a lot of automations that you need. It can't just be you. All right. 1 million to 5 million means you figure some stuff out. Okay. You figure some stuff out. So when I heard the remark that it was a gentleman that said, you're not even ready to have investors until you've made $1 million. I was like, I get that 100%, because once you cross that mark, you've already worked on all of the things and you already understand all of the things that you need to be able to scale up to the next level. Whereas if you're at the $100,000 mark, you can still pretty much do everything yourself and still generate that. So that's one of the things we're going to be addressing on when we go to our Medellin conference. All right. Feeling like you need to have it all figured out. It's another reason people don't get into entrepreneurship. You're never going to have it all figured out, ever. Right? If you are doing 1 million, you got to figure out how to get to 5. If you are doing 5 million, you got to figure out how to get to 20. Right? So, but the more advanced you get and the more seasoned you get, the quicker it is for you to figure these things out. Right? Because you can look at a system, you can look at a process, you can figure out where it's broken, and then you can fix it. Right? And you're starting to make more data-driven decisions as opposed to what you think is the right thing to do, which is where a lot of us start. Right? And you start analyzing the data and being able to interpret what it tells you to show you the way forward. So, and again, that's something that we're going to be placing a lot of focus on when we go to Medellin. All right. All right. Beliefs about business. I think this is the last category, right, of why people don't get into entrepreneurship. Business is risky. Yes, it is. Not doing business is risky also, right? I need a big following to start. This always cracks me up. So we're doing we had about 20 people on here earlier. I think there's only like 3 or 4 people on TikTok watching right now. We had, so we had to do a new TikTok page. So we had to build it back up. So I don't get discouraged when I get on. I'm doing multiple platforms at once right now, so I can justify the time. But if I get on TikTok and I'm just talking to 3 people, I'll teach them like I'm talking to 1,000 people, right? And somebody made the comment, well, the reason why I came on, I signed up with you is because there was only a few of us on there, and you were teaching like you were teaching to a room with 1,000 people in it. And what they didn't see is all of the years that I got discouraged when I was doing something and nobody showed up. All of the times in the years where, I was relying on all these people and nobody showed up. But it was necessary for me to build up the thick enough skin so that when I got to start a TikTok page over again from scratch, I'll talk to 2, 3, 4, 5 people, right? It'll get up to, 150 every now and again when some of my friends come in with a larger following, but it's just part of the process. And if you're not confident enough to be able to go through that part of the process, then you're not going to be confident enough to handle all the good things that come to you when you finally get there. All right. So I need a big following to start. No, you don't. You don't need a big following to start. Before you can have 2 people follow you, you got to have 1, and just focus on the 1 and the rest will come. All right. You need to know everything before you start. That's a myth. All right. But there should be a planning phase. And if you're just trying to figure it out all on your own the whole entire time, you're going to be in bad shape. That's going to cost you a lot of money. I know, because it cost me a lot of money, and I've had successful businesses before. And, just something as simple as leveraging technology. We've gone through, we're on our 4th website, our 4th. The first one was $7,500. The one after that was $5,000. The one after that, somebody did for $2,800. This one right now was a lot less, and it's the best because we knew exactly what we needed and we couldn't be sold on a bunch of other stuff. All right. So, you don't need to know everything before you start. But if I could have found this guy, or I asked the right questions in the beginning, I wouldn't have just had to throw money at a bunch of stuff. And I think that's what a lot of people do. When you have the money and the resources, it gives you a false sense of security. All right. It takes money to make money. I think that's just a story they tell poor people to keep people poor. I can see how that could be interpreted. It could be interpreted a few ways. It does not take money to make money. I've given workshops on how to invest in real estate and what to do when you have no money. The thing about mentoring 350 people and not having an end date to your program is anytime they go through a challenge, I go through a challenge, regardless of what it is. If they get laid off, I get laid off. If they have to tap out for a year, I've got to have a solution to help them as a real estate investor. And what I do specifically is whatever situation they go through, I put myself in that situation and say, this is what I would do if I was in that situation. And they don't have to keep paying. So, they shouldn't be hesitant to come back and say, hey man, I'm going through a tough time. This is what it is, right? Financial, whatever it is. My credit took a hit, whatever it is. I ran out of money, whatever it is, right? And I got to pick them up and say, you know what? It's all par for the course. Let's get to work. So it takes money to make money. That is not true. I will say it helps. It helps a lot. The more education you have, though, the less money you need, because we can figure it out, especially when it comes to getting creative. Last one, and this is I'll close out with this: entrepreneurs are born and not made. I don't know. I don't have anything to say about that. I don't know. I don't know if they're born or they're made. I don't know. I don't think that's something that anybody can affirm or deny. I can only explain why I want to be an entrepreneur. Why I have to be an entrepreneur. I'm just blessed to be able to function in the corporate environment. I can go back and forth in case I ever need to go back. Not only that, I can leverage the knowledge and ways of being from both environments to help me perform in the other environment. All right. Being in corporate made me a better entrepreneur when it comes to systems and processes and key performance indicators and all of those things, hiring people, firing people. Being an entrepreneur made me better in the corporate environment because no one in the corporate environment is going to outwork me. I almost get offended when somebody tries to outwork me because the threshold, the standard of grinding it out is so low in the corporate environment that I always look like an all-star. Period. I got that from being an entrepreneur. I'm working, when I was I didn't start out at the corporate level. I had to work my way up. So I was a manager at one of these apartment developments. And just the conversations that I would hear was like, hey, I know this report has to be done by tomorrow, but it's already 5:50 and I can't do it. I'm supposed to be off in 10 minutes. I used to love hearing those conversations because I knew whoever was having that conversation, whoever mouth those words were coming out of, I was going to take their job if they were over me. And I did. Once you get to the VP level, I wasn't taking anybody's job because it's a different ball game up there. But my next promotion would have been vice president, and I don't think I would have took that. It was just too much. I don't have the personality type. All right. So thanks to the folks that came in on TikTok. You guys know if you guys want to know more about our retreat, you can just text that number above my head. You guys on Clubhouse. Again, I don't really schedule any rooms on Clubhouse, so I'll usually pop up and I'll just open up a room. So thank you guys for listening to me ramble for the last hour or hour and a half. If you have any last minute questions, I will stay on and answer them. It could be about anything. It could be about real estate, entrepreneurship, whatever it is. But, I told folks in January of 2021, and some of you guys have been following me since then. In January 2021, I said, you better get my rookie card now because I know where I'm going. And I told folks last year, I said, you better jump on the train now because it's going to get to a point where you're going to tell somebody, yeah, I used to do Zoom calls with Otis all the time, and no one's going to believe you. So I'm telling you guys again, right now, everybody that signs with me, everybody in my real estate family, when I make it to the promised land, you guys all make it to the promised land. And you guys know what I'm talking about. You guys that are in my real estate family, you hear it. We joke about this stuff all the time, but look, there's some opportunities coming down the road and I bring them home first. That being said, I think I'm tired of hearing myself talk for one night. I think I'm tired of hearing myself talk. Any last minute questions? Let me see. Is that Connie?
Well, I wanted to ask, when you started your business, did you start with an end, like not the real estate stuff? So most people in real estate want to own it, so their grandchildren die. But when you started the other businesses, did you have an exit in mind? No. And how did you exit? Like, did you sell it, or did you have to find the seller? Was it easy to exit?
No, I just shut it down. I just shut it down. The last business, I never had I'm just in the past 5 years, I've had an exit in mind. Most of the time, man, I was just trying to survive. When that real estate market tanked back in 2008, it was tanking before that, but 2008 is when the rest of the world saw it. I was like, look, I just got to survive. And all of these bouncing all over. Look, I was a mortgage broker. I was a licensed real estate professional. I was a notary public. I'm licensed in insurance. I'm working in property management. I'm doing all of these different things just to survive. Now, it would make me sound a lot better if I told the story as if, yes, I was doing all of these different things so that one day I can combine all this knowledge and develop the 4 Data Points Academy and have all of the knowledge and the background to be able to coach people through any situation that they could come across. No, I was just trying to survive, man. I had child support. My car got repossessed. I filed bankruptcy I think in 2009 or 11. And when I filed bankruptcy, I was bankrupt like 3 years before that. I was so bankrupt, I just couldn't afford to pay the filing fee and pay somebody to do it. Right. So I was just trying to survive, man. And I didn't know it at the time, but God always has a plan for us, and God is not going to send me to college to become the person he wants me to be 10 years from now. Life is his college. So it sucked for me at the time. And I went through a lot of heartache and, a lot of just pride being hurt. And had to try to support a family. I was on food stamps for like 90 days, and I was in ministry for 3 years exclusively. And I think that's what got me through it. From 2008 to 2011, I was in ministry exclusively. That means nothing else mattered. And I was going into places that nobody else wanted to go, right? Jails, Salvation Army, and places that were people that were dealing with real problems that didn't feel comfortable going into church. And all of it came, full circle. And now you guys get this presentation. All right. But this wasn't, shoot, man, I'm very transparent. And I think some of you guys know that about me. I'm very transparent, and I don't put too much emphasis on the wins. And you guys hear me dwell on the losses a little more than somebody trying to sell something would, because I see so much value.
That wasn't anything.
Well, yeah. And, it's like for example, I did an Instagram post, and I don't do these very often, but if you read the whole post, there was some education in there. And it was basically one deal that I did, and I made like $200,000 on this deal, right? And I'm not sure if I took it down. I think I took it down on TikTok. I don't know. It's still floating out there somewhere, but I ended up having to take it down because people were misinterpreting what I was trying to say. Yeah, I made like 200 grand on that deal, but they didn't read the part where I only got to keep 12, right? And my expenses are like 15 grand a month. And I was trying to explain that just the wins that you guys see aren't always wins. They're just presented that way, right? The month before, I did a deal where I made like 28,000. This is just one deal, but I got to keep the whole 28,000. And the whole point of the post was which month was better. If I had to say, which one would you want to be? Right. So there's also times where I didn't have any money, man. I was in the multifamily commercial industry. The saving grace was I got an apartment as part of my compensation package. But when I got divorced, I didn't even have a car. I had a bike, like a mountain bike. And I was glad to have it because I was like, shoot, I don't always wanted to work out anyway and never had the time. Now I got a bike. I live where I work where I live. If I need to go to the grocery store, I can just ride down there, get a workout. I was always super optimistic because I always knew where I was going. And I never, because I built it up before, I could build it all back. That's why I tell people, look, get the education first because they can't take it away from you. If I lost everything today, everything, I could start all over, and not just start over with the same enthusiasm that I had when I was at my highest. But people don't see that way. Poor people don't see that way. And by poor, I'm not referring to how much money you have or don't have. I'm referring to the mentality that you have, the thought processes, and all of the things that keep people poor in their mind. All right, I got to go, y'all. Let me get off my soapbox. Let me get off my soapbox. All right. I'll probably do another. One tomorrow morning. We'll figure it out. But over the next few months, we're going to be building up these platforms, and I'm going to be on all of these different platforms at one time. Clubhouse, again, you guys are just going to have to catch me when you catch me. If you want to be notified anytime we have something going on, I will put the number in the chat on Clubhouse. Write it down. Shoot a text. You can tell I can't multitask because I got to stop talking.
Good.
There you go.
I might be at your thing too because I live in Envigado.
What'd you say?
I said I might be coming to your meeting as well because I live in Envigado.
Oh, nice. Yeah, man, we're gonna have a good time, and I want people. It's one thing to be able to put your business together from start to finish, but I want people to feel what it's like when you don't have the weight of being in America feels like. I'm not talking about when you go on a cruise or go to a vacation for a week or whatever. I'm talking about experiencing the culture and taking time. Oops. I'm talking about experiencing the culture and taking time just to slow down and be able to focus on your business without feeling like you're in a rat race. I'm telling you, that's a real thing. All right, y'all. All right, I'm out of here. You guys, everybody got that number down? Any last minute questions on Clubhouse? All right. I think we had a good day. I will catch up with y'all later. And Instagram, I'll catch up with y'all later. And am I still on TikTok? I am still on TikTok. All right. Is that Kurt? I know that ain't